Hello, everyone. I can't see you, of course, but I'm very happy that you are here to listen to this topic that I'm very passionate about. I am Hanne Thorman. I'm a partner in EY, and I'm head of EY's Climate Change and Sustainability Services in Norway. And I will now talk to you a bit about the big picture around sustainability and why it's probably one of the absolute largest business opportunities of our time. So a little bit about myself. I've been working as a sustainability consultant for the last 14 years now. And it's probably 17 years ago that I realized that there is a kind of revolution about to happen. There is increasing focus on sustainability of business and the responsibility that businesses need to take. And also that there is a connection between profits and being responsible. And now, a few years later, it's very amazing to see how this has become reality. And we are now working with the largest companies across the Nordics, and also with investors who want to seize these opportunities. But before I go into my presentation, I wanted to share this video with you all, which is a short video made by the WWF together with Netflix, and was presented to the leaders at Davos at the World Economic Forum. This is a nice way of showing you the bigger picture and the connection of business. Her kan dere vise videoen. Great. So with that background, just to introduce you to the way that we speak about sustainability in EY and when we work with our clients. It's basically, in a way, the sweet spot where environmental and social considerations and business returns meet, as we see it. And it's also about long-term value creation. And this is reinforced now by the focus from the investor side on sustainability and what in the investor world has now become known as ESG, environmental, social, and governance. And our latest investor survey for this year, 2020, shows that 98% of investors are considering this type of information when they're making investment decisions. And this has changed in the last 3 years that we've done the survey in an amazing way. In the first years that we did this survey, it wasn't that impressive to use these numbers, but now it's basically all investors that we ask globally. And lately, it's also about climate change, and the focus from investors is very much around climate change. And this handsome man, Mark Carney, has said it well when he was the governor of the Bank of England. He used strong words and said that firms that align their business models to the transition to a net zero world will be rewarded handsomely. Firms ignoring climate change will go bankrupt. So quite bold statements there about the importance of sustainability to the success of business going forward. And you may or may not have heard this number, but it is said that there's at least 12 trillion US dollars in business opportunities related to us achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. Basically, the world needs to go in a direction, and in order to get there, there are lots of business opportunities to make that happen. So how are we doing on the Sustainable Development Goals then? So across the world, of course, there's a lot of challenges still in reaching the Sustainable Development Goals defined by the UN. And even here in Norway, there are several goals that we still need to do a lot to contribute to achieving. The goals here that are marked red are the goals where Norway still has major challenges. So to talk a little bit about them, the zero hunger goal, the reason Norway has challenges around that goal has to do with the way that we eat in Norway. So maybe it's not something that we would think that we contributed to, but basically because we have a high level of obesity in Norway, and because we have what's called a high trophic level to what we eat, which basically means that we eat food high up the hierarchy of the value chain of the ecosystems. So we eat food that needs to eat, or animals mainly, that needs to eat other animals that perhaps eat other animals or insects that eats plants, rather than eating lower down in the pyramid. We also have still a lot of challenges / opportunities around the goal number 12 there, which is called responsible consumption and production. It's now been said that Norway is only 2.4% circular, which means that we have a lot of opportunities in making sure that what now is waste becomes resources in a circular flow of resources. Also, we have a red light on climate action, goal 13, and this is mainly related, or to a large degree related to our exports of fossil fuels. It's very much recommended to have a look at these goals and look where we are and how Norwegian businesses can contribute, or in whichever country you are in, to look at where the challenges in the country you are in still needs to solve. And also, if you want to have a closer look at what's going on in the rest of the world, this same report has a very good overview of the status across the world. And just briefly now to show you that although there's a lot of red lights around the world in terms of our progression towards the Sustainable Development Goals, there are also some lights and some yellow and orange dots around here. So why is this a business opportunity, or what is driving this business opportunity? Actually, for the last decade, investors and the financial market has been a key driver to sustainability focus in businesses. And now it's really coming to a peak, it seems, or perhaps not a peak, but even not a peak. It's accelerating, is what I'd like to say. And Larry Fink, who's the CEO of BlackRock, the largest asset manager in the world, has said that we're seeing a fundamental reshaping of finance, and that the evidence on climate risk is compelling investors to reassess the core assumptions about modern finance, even. So now investors are defining criteria for what green is, and working to channel money in a greener, more sustainable direction, and through that also pushing companies, both from the old world and the new world, to be more sustainable. Another very important factor driving this opportunity now is how regulators are being increasingly bold about sustainability, and that is in particular in the EU, actually. So the EU has set very ambitious goals for cutting greenhouse gas emissions and moving towards renewable energy, as well as saving energy. And they've even committed to mobilizing 1,000 billion euros before 2030 towards the green transition. And they're planning on mobilizing both public finance, but also stimulating private finance. And what's also interesting is that the types of regulation that are being developed now are perhaps bolder than before, and also hitting business in a different way than it used to. An example of that is how the EU has introduced a ban on single-use plastics, which basically will impact the business models of a lot of businesses involved with those kinds of products. And we haven't seen those kinds of bans before. And what we're expecting is that regulation going forward now will have that kind of quite harsh effects sometimes on businesses that are not sustainable. What is also driving this opportunity more and more now is that customers are actually changing their behavior. So in the time that I worked with sustainability, customers, at least the consumers, have not been very focused on sustainability or not willing to pay more for it. But in the last few years, we've really seen, at least in rich countries, a large shift in this direction in how people spend their money. And what we've also seen in a recent consumer survey that EY has done during the COVID crisis is that a change in customer behavior have been accelerated. So in this global survey, we found that 35% have changed what they buy, and 53% believe their values and how they view the world will change. So if there's a time to try something new and change, this is really it. So where specifically are these opportunities? A lot of them is, of course, associated with climate change. And according to the International Panel on Climate Change, we have less than 10 years to cut emissions by 45% if we want to avoid more than 1.5 degree warming. So what does that mean? That means that we have very little time to develop new types of energy, to develop new types of transport, of infrastructure, ways to reduce waste, ways to be more energy efficient. And in all this, of course, there's a lot of opportunities. We've also become more aware of plastic in our environment. We've now found that there is plastic in the air, in the Arctic and in Antarctica. And this is very depressing, of course, but it also shows that there's an opportunity around developing new kinds of products that are not as dependent on plastics. Anything that's made in plastic can be made by wood. And it means that we can develop clothing that does not lose microplastics when it's being washed. Or we can develop technologies to help clean the oceans. A third huge challenge, which probably also will be an opportunity going forward, is that we are now becoming aware that in the last 40 years, we have lost 50% of the biodiversity on the planet. And also that only 4% of mammals in the world are wild. So how can this be an opportunity? This is, for example, an opportunity for food that is based on plants and not meat. It's an opportunity to increase the greenery and nature that we have around us, or to create alternatives to palm oil or soya that is contributing to deforestation of the rainforest. To conclude my presentation, I wanted to introduce two visionaries that I'm sure you know of, but to show how they have contributed already to improving the world through their business and their vision. So Yvonne Chouinard is the founder of Patagonia and a hero to a lot of us that are working with and thinking about sustainability every day. He basically started his business making climbing steel pistons and realized that after he had become the largest business on climbing pistons in the US, that these pistons that you had to hammer into the mountain were actually damaging the mountains as well. And an example of the way he thinks, he just stopped that business, stopped the production that was the core of his business, and introduced a different type of aluminium choker that you could put into the wall without hammering it into the wall. And basically his clients followed him, and he quickly became the largest business on this field again. And through his career, he's been pushing his now huge company, Patagonia, who's working with now mainly with sports clothes, to be more sustainable and to meet their mission of help solve the environmental crisis. And Patagonia was one of the first companies to introduce organic cotton before that was a concept. And basically he's been pushing the business with a focus on sustainability, even reluctant to grow it too much, but has had amazing success because his customers has seen the mission that they have and want to be part of it. An interesting example was they tried to boycott Black Friday, but the next day had huge sales from their fans. The other visionary that you all know, who inspires me and many others, is Elon Musk, who basically has built his business by trying to solve the largest problems that we have. So his steps to save the world has been, one, to get rid of fossil powered cars, and he's made a huge leap in that direction for us. He's also convinced that there probably will be some sort of event that can lead to human extinction. So he believes that we also need to be able to colonize other planets. Thus, he's created SpaceX and is working on space travel for us. And his third step is to also work on hyperloops and faster transport. So that will also be interesting to see how that develops. But what's inspiring about these two is that they've seen the problems that needs to be solved in the world, and they come with solutions to solve it. So our question to you listening is, are you part of the solution? And is your business part of the solution going forward? Thank you.